Welcome to Lies, 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 everyone. The title of the episode is Half Truth is a Whole Lie. I'm your host, Georgia, and my co host is Destiny. I'm taking the side of the argument where you can tell someone is lying.
Hi guys, welcome. I'm Destiny, and I disagree. I do not think that people can tell the lies, so I will be taking that stance. Why don't we talk about the surveys that we sent out to the individuals that range from college students, parents, siblings, friends, and all of the above?
I'm going to be reading off questions from the survey. Do you think you can tell when someone's lying? Is our first question. Our second question is, how accurately do you think you can detect lies? Our third question is, do people have tells? And our number 4 question is asking the survey takers what common tells they think when someone is lying. Question 5, do you think it's easier for someone you know well to lie, like notice they're lying, or a stranger?
On question one, 83% of the people who took this survey said that they think that they can tell when people are lying to them. 17% said no. Question two, 48% of them said that they can tell 50% of the time when somebody is lying to them, while 48% said that they can tell 75% of the time when somebody is lying to them. And one person said they had no idea when they could tell. For question three,
100% of the survey takers say they believe that people have common tells.
To them. And question four, some of the common tells that we received in this survey were body language, avoiding eye contact, sweating, fidgeting, tone of voice changing, and adding lots of details or oversharing. And question five, 91% of people think that it is easier to tell when they are more familiar with the person. And only 9% said that it does not matter if they know the person or not.
On question 1, my side that people think they can tell when someone is lying is because there's so many articles out there and so many seminars that you can take to detect when someone is telling you a lie. Like in the New York Times article looking over Tracy Brown's book, which she's a body language expert, and it points out eye movement, and you know, she wants you to ask the basic questions and see how someone responds to you. And it's basically giving you a baseline. And I just think that is very interesting because it's something I'm looking for when I see people, if I want to know if they're lying or not.
Lies! Well, I have to disagree with you on that one because some individuals just don't want to talk to others. And so it's really hard to decide if their body language is them wanting to tell you a lie or if they're just uncomfortable and wanting to get out of the situation.
We're going to refer back to question 2 on our podcast about why 48% of people think they can tell a lie. Well, I found an article from Simply Psychology that tells you how to recognize some of the signs of lying, like facial cues and body cues. And it's basically, the common tells that we ask to hear from people. And they also say to look at a lack of ownership words like, oh, to say like in a polygraph kind of situation or being interrogated, uh, I was not and I did not do this, and kind of just ignoring.
So you're saying ignoring, um, like owning the words, I would say.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of the perfect word, like the when people on TV shows or like in interrogations are skirting
Mhm.
on, completely saying, "Oh yeah, I did this." Or they go like, "It must have been somebody else because there's no way
Mhm.
I could have done XYZ."
Okay. What? Okay. I understand your point, but I have some hesitations with that because not every individual talks the same. If you think about essays and things like that, we have first person, second person, third person perspectives, and when they can write an essay. And while a lot of people talk in first person, some of them talk in third person. So there's some reservations I have on that theory.
I am gonna refer back to question 3 and 4 together because they kind of go together. Um, as Destiny said, 100% of people think there are tells, and she read those off earlier in our little sequence. And it's all the things that my articles, including uh, a video we're gonna play later, um, says that there can be bodily cues like your respiration can change, your pupil size. The video we have is from former CIA agent Andrew. We got it off of TikTok.
And everything. But body language is especially a factor in lying because a skilled liar knows how to appear like they are telling the truth with their words and with their body, whereas an unskilled liar often has a disconnect, and their body will say a different message than what their mouth is saying. Consider your stereotypical jock, your standard European footballer or your American jock. A lot of times they'll be portrayed as like somebody like, they sit bigger than life and all this other stuff, right? Their body shows confidence and openness, but then when they talk, they sound like idiots, right? I don't, I'm sure, like, totally, like, dude, that lady, like, whatever. There's a disconnect. Their voice does not demonstrate the same confidence that their body demonstrates. So you know that that person is lying. What they're lying about is not necessarily just the content of what they're saying, but they recognize they can't.
The video made a great point about how you carry yourself determines if someone is going to call you out on your lie, and the way your words are as well. So, linguistically and body language wise, you need to look at those things to see if people are trying to deceive you or not. Like if their body language is super confident, but their words are kind of stuttery or just not as confident as their body seems, chances are they're telling you a lie.
According to the research that I did.
Yeah, Georgia, I think Andrew made a great point in that video where he talks about body language and what we're saying and how a skilled liar can do both. He can be confident in his body language, but also confident in what he's saying, whereas the average person typically is not as confident in both. And that's usually how they can pick up on detecting these. So I'm curious as to know if people were better at picking up on these techniques between the two, is if they could be able to detect lies more accurately than we do now with this set of skills. Could this be more beneficial in government jobs where they have to detect if somebody's lying fast enough, or not even government jobs, just jobs in general where they're put in a situation where they have to see if they're being lied to or not, and to see if this skill could help increase the accuracy of it?
I think that if this was taught in the common training, it probably would increase the ability to pick up on it faster. Because if you're having multiple people look at one person and each person is looking for a different thing, and then they come back together, they can piece it together a little faster than maybe just one person going over a piece of film or even an audio clip. Because when you have body language and just, words come together, it completely changes things, especially if you are on the lookout for maybe their body says they're confident, but their words don't, or their words say they're confident, but their body doesn't. And there's just, polygraph tests are used to test the same measures to see if someone is being truthful or not. And they're kind of, you know, telling lies backwards. You can't really do that. You can tell the truth forwards and backwards. And Destiny and I are going to play a game later in the podcast as well to prove that you can overload someone's cognitive function. And that's
That's a very valid point. I think that a lot of individuals can have a cognitive overload. However, that not a lot of people know that if they do that cognitive overload, that it can actually make them reveal the truth. So while that might be a valid point, I'm not sure if it could classify for a whole population.
as we were talking about doing earlier, we're now going to go back to that little activity.
I would like for you to tell me a truth and then say it in reverse, and then tell me a lie and say it in reverse, and let me try to figure out which one is the truth and which one is a lie.
Okay.
Okay, the question is, what is the most embarrassing moment that you've ever experienced?
I was at a restaurant with my family and I was wearing these brand new boots and all of that. And I slipped, fell, and I pretended to be dead because I thought people would forget about me. That is not what happened.
I'm sure it didn't happen. Can you?
Sell it backwards?
Yep.
Oh, I fell in my brand new boots when I was out to supper with my family and definitely did not go the way I thought it would about the death.
Okay. Now, can you tell me your other side, whether it's the true or a false statement?
Yes. I was in theater and during a performance, I slipped and fell off the stage. I fell off the stage during my theater performance. Which one do you think's the lie?
I really would like to save the first one.
Wrong. I was never in.
Was unable to pick up on the fact that you were lying, which one was the truth and what one was the lie. So I think partially I had some cognitive overload, like we talked about. When you overload the mind, it's easier to be able to detect when the person's lying. or not.
Theater.
Question 5 was, do you think it's easier to tell when someone you know well is lying? And obviously, most people said yes, because you've watched these people tell you lies. So you're quite familiar with what they do when they lie. But at the same time,
Georgia, hear me out. I hear your perception. I really do. But let's take a mother and a teenage daughter, for example. And if her daughter sneaks out, do you think she's going to get caught? Sometimes yes, other times no. But the daughter or the teenager typically ends up lying about it. So do you think the mom could really tell, even though that's someone I would assume she is very close with and can be able to pick up on those lies, if we were really able to detect when people were lying to us?
that is a very good point, Destiny. But I raise you another question. Do you think the mom knows when the child is lying, but only chooses to call her out on it when it is a big deal or a greater danger to the child?
Valid point, Georgia. And I guess there's going to have to be more studies on that question because I do not have the answer for that. Hey guys, so back to what we were saying. Question 1, 83% say that they can tell when they're lying, and 17% say no. Well, if you were the 17% who decided to say no, congratulations. You are correct. In the article Psychology Today, under the subsection How Liars Lie, the first thing that they say is, why can't we detect liars? And that was a very thoughtful question. Why can't we detect liars? Well, we learn as children that it's very simple and easy to lie and be untruthful. We just tell a lie, look at people in the face, and just move on. And it's just that easy, and nobody has any idea. Think about when you meet a stranger and you say, hi, how are you? And then you say, good, how are you? 9 times out of 10, that person might not be good. They're just not willing to share the facts with you.
I'm going to have to jump in and disagree because children don't fully understand what a lie is if they're telling it at a young age. Now, maybe when they're older, but I just don't think that, children just lie to deceive. I just think they watch their parents do it. So that would change it.
You have
On to question 2, we asked our survey takers if they think that they can tell when people are lying. And we decided 48% said that they could, and 48% said 75% that they
The time.
could tell when someone was lying. Well, in the article, Personality Correlates, it talks about the big 5 characteristic traits of humans and trying to decide which characteristic tends to lie more and or less, and who can detect more and or less. And at the beginning of the article, it says that many people tend to overestimate their own abilities to detect lies.
That's pretty interesting.
And one of the reasons it's stated for this is because we as humans have a bias of telling the truth. And we just feel like everybody else is telling the truth as well. And so we tend to, it's called the 3 above effect. And it's where people tend to estimate their positive qualities.
Why do you think people overestimate the positive qualities versus looking at, okay, people lie every day?
Because people, it kind of talks about this more in the article, but people want to believe in good, and people think very highly of themselves, and they don't tend to think negatively about themselves. They only think in a good light.
So you're basically saying they attribute their own positive qualities into people that might not necessarily deserve that.
Correct. Question 3.
100% of the survey takers say they believe that people have common tells.
And we're more accurate at telling when people tell the truth to us versus when they actually lie to us.
I'm gonna have to jump in there because when someone is telling me the truth, I don't really get this weird feeling in my stomach. But when I think they're lying, and most of the time they do turn out to be lying, I get a weird pit in my stomach. Is there anything in your article that can combat that feeling?
Georgia, that is a great question. And there's going to have to be more research into the development of women and just people in general who have that intuition feeling. Because I don't know if there's an explanation of why we feel that way sometimes versus why we don't. Question 4, common tales that people associate with lying behaviors. And I think we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, Georgia. Just different things that we might do, like girls twirling their hair, avoiding eye contact, or maybe too much eye contact, or nervous twitching, or sweating hands, or all these little things that we might associate with somebody who's lying would have. But actually, reading this article called Beliefs about the behavioral cues of deception actually goes into detail about how typically it was a research done over employees in the workforce with their managers. And typically they found that when an employee was lying to their manager or management, all movement decreased.
Interesting. I always thought that maybe they would increase or there would be a change in like their word pattern. And one of my articles mentioned the linguistic of a person. But why do you think that they found that there's no movement?
Not that everyone stops moving, but that their movements kind of decrease. So basically, I think that is the person knows that they're lying, so they're trying to look like they're not.
Okay, so it goes into the fact that people are looking for the common tells that we all think of. So to combat that, they are being trying to mimic honest movements.
Correct. Yes, they are. And I think that the common tells that we know and we associate with is a stereotype, which in many articles is trying to debunk that stereotype. Question 5, 91% of our survey takers just said that they could tell when someone is lying when they are more familiar with that person. And why I think some of that could be true. If we look into certain job forces, they're trained and supposed to be trained at detecting lies. And so I think with education and training, some of this can be true. We take cops for instance, think while it's not, and the studies have shown that it's not 100% valid that they can tell, but it does increase their percentage of being able to tell if someone is lying to them or not. But the percentage of what we got does not match the research that is being shown.
I hear what you're saying on the fact that it is not, it does increase their ability, but I feel like most cops generally can tell when someone is lying, but they don't know them very well. So I don't know how to back it up. Could it be maybe the familiarity of like repeat offenders is what makes the cops so confident they can tell when they're lying?
I think there is a certain type of confidence that one takes on when trying to prove that someone is being honest. Georgia, we talked about that book, Cotton Picking.
Do you mean the book Picking Cotton, the story of how Ronald Cotton was accused of a crime he didn't commit, and then he got together with the lady that originally accused him, and they wrote this book together?
Yes.
And how he was falsely accused by this woman, and the cops believed that he was lying, even though he was telling the truth for years and years and years. So I think there's still a discrepancy when it comes to cops being able to actually detect those lies, because yes, I think they're better than the average person at doing that because of their training. I don't think that that should be the sole reality of it.
I hear your point about that, and I definitely, after hearing your research, maybe have some pause on people being able to just, oh, I could tell when you're lying because I'm just such a great lie detector as a person. But at the same time, I, still kind of hold my own little biases because that's, I've always been able to, for the most part, pick out when some people are lying.
Absolutely, Georgia. I think you are on the right track. While there has been research to prove that some people can, and that the average person can detect lies, but that we overestimate our ability to really detect as many lies as we think. So I think on a normal day, we could probably detect something super simple that is happening, like a simple lie. But realistically, we overestimate our own abilities and we think we do better than we actually do. So I think that comes into play as yes, we can, but we also only can to an extent.
I think that that is well put because we did do an activity with our professor, Dr. Hart, in class where, depending on which way you flipped the coin, um, decided whether you're going to tell the lie first or the truth first. And I think most of us did pretty well, but there were some people that were just really bad liars. And I wonder if maybe that also possibly could contribute to people's confidence in being able to tell if someone is lying.
Yes, Georgia. In the article earlier that I mentioned, it actually the big five characteristic traits, extroversion, being an extrovert, um, they thought would tell more lies and detect more lies, which actually happens to be true, because they had more opportunities because they were around more people to be able to tell the lies and then therefore detect them. So I think in that class experiment, the people who are super social and always talking were able to kind of tell who was lying or who was not. And then vice versa for the people who had to lie and weren't very good at it, might have been more introverted just because they're not comfortable with lying as much as people who are extroverted.
I didn't think about that angle that your personality traits would play a part in it as well, because it's not something, people think about. And I feel like we found some decent common ground here.
I do too. And I think our biggest takeaway from that is that it's not a definitive answer. There's two sides to it, and people can sometimes detect lies better than others. But at the end of the day, we all still fall short
Of being 100% on able to detect lies.
Yes.
Well, thank y'all for joining us.
It was nice talking to y'all this week, and I hope you come back for next week's episode.
The articles used by me, Georgia, were Signs Somebody's Lying from the New York Times, How to Tell if Someone's Lying, Simply Psychology, The Science of Lie Detection by Verbal Cues. I also found Detecting Children and Adults helpful as well.
That's all, folks.